There we go. So yes, welcome everybody to the first Fireside Chat of the year. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, or this afternoon, I'm delighted we've got Virginie Uwimana joining us from the Flying Labs in Namibia. Virginie is a civil engineer studying Master's Structural Engineering at the Namibia University. University of Science and Technology. And if I can just read directly from the background here, she's got experience in working with several NGOs, working in the civil engineering consulting space, training and lecturing. She's the co-founder and coordinator of Flying Labs Namibia, which is an NGO focused on using drones for social good. Through the Flying Labs Namibia sector programs in humanitarian aid, public health and the environment, they're delivering community-based projects. And the aim is to directly improve the lives of the Namibian population. And also she's one of the co-authors of the Amazon best-selling Drone Professional 3. So there we go. That's Virginie. I hope I've done you justice there, Virginie. Please feel free to add more to that. But if you would like to get up, start your presentation, please do.
Thank you very much, Louise. There's nothing more I can add. You've done more than just justice. So let me start and share my screen with everybody. Today's presentation, since it's the first one for the year, I thought it would be nice if it was an interactive session. So there will be a little bit of interaction. I've given everybody a heads up.
Great. Are you happy to
can everybody
go along? Sorry, is it Virginie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Questions answered, everybody just participating, and just a very warm presentation to open up the year.
Great, thank you.
Cool. So I can go ahead?
Go, please. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So yeah, my presentation is titled The Road Through Uncharted Territories. I hope you can all see the screen and not the stuff on the Zoom. You see the full screen, I hope?
Yes, yes.
Okay, awesome. And then it's being bold in the face of the unknown. This is because the whole idea of using drone technology for social good, where we are in Africa, is sometimes a very new concept. So for us, sometimes it is the face of the unknown, and we have to take on challenges that we wouldn't even have imagined could be possible. We would have learned something in theory, but when you get down on the ground in practice, you see something completely different, something completely new. So that's why it's being bold in the face of the unknown. So what to expect? I thought that perhaps I'm meeting a lot of new people today, so I'll just introduce you to the Flying Labs network at large and the work that we do in Namibia, and then the value of community engagement. Initially, I had actually thought of discussing, hazardous attitudes of a pilot and regulations, but those two topics are also big topics on their own, and I wouldn't have done any topic justice. I thought I'd just focus down on the community engagement. Plus, then we get to interact more, and there's more time on that one. So we'll just start with a little bit about Namibia Flying Labs. Our aim really is to give our local community, and any Flying Labs really, to give their local community power to bring about positive impact in different sectors, as Louise had mentioned, in terms of aid, environmental efforts, health efforts, to give them the power to solve these solutions by themselves, or at least with the power of Flying Labs, and find solutions to these problems as being part of the solution, the community. So I am the coordinator together with Charles. I'm glad to see that he's also joined us in this call. That's a surprise to me. So thank goodness. Any questions that will be brought my way, Charles, thank you for coming through. You're also answering them together with me. So we're both civil engineers and we're both certified drone pilots. We've started Flying Labs Namibia in 2020, and we've been doing some great work so far. So the Flying Labs network as a whole, we're in almost 40 countries across Latin America, Asia, as well as Africa. We turn the map upside down because our motto is really to kind of give power and to locals and put them on top, as opposed to previously you have large drone companies that come into African countries, do the work, and then they leave with all the knowledge and all the equipment. So we're trying to empower the locals. So that's why we flip the map upside down in Flying Labs. So we do a lot of collaboration and knowledge sharing. So we are a family, in as much as we're across different countries. So sometimes if something has been done in Zimbabwe or Zambia, we just get the project and we bring it and we implement it maybe in Namibia. So we kind of get we don't restart the wheel. It's just like learning on and adding more value. So that's the power of, being one huge family in Flying Labs. So most, what we usually focus on as a whole would be training, social good projects, and some Flying Labs also do a little bit of business incubation, just to also just build that local ecosystem as well. So our goal is to contribute and build to the market, capacity building, and also job creation. Like in Namibia, we have a huge problem with youth unemployment. So we really try and see where we can play our role. So we work within the goals set by the United Nations. When we'll discuss the different sector programs, I'll just go through that instead of have you read this entire paragraph. And we work with We Robotics, that is the global NGO that helps and manages the Flying Labs. And We Robotics is a Swiss American NGO that also gets us partners, gets us funding, gets us tech partners, software partners, and helps the Flying Labs through their work. So kind of seed the funding and opportunities through the different Flying Labs. So these are our global tech partners and software partners that we have, as well as donor funders, and they've helped us do some really amazing work within our communities in all the different countries that Flying Labs operates. So the sector programs, we have Dev Robotics. This has to do with land management. So it can also be whether you have to do surveying for a particular community, whether you have to do check density reports. We'll see that in Namibia we did something like that, but it's really understanding in terms of development problems that the community might have and see how we can solve it using drones. We also have youth robotics, which is just training. I think I just mentioned what before when we just started, because we had done with the tele work as well. I'll just show you what we did as well in Namibia. So we do youth training as well. And then we do eco-robotics that has to do with environment and wildlife conservation. And then health robotics, which is primarily activities like medical cargo delivery. Aid robotics as well, that has to do with humanitarian aid in case of disasters, natural disasters, floods, or which is very actually common in the northern area of Namibia. We've got a huge flooding problem, or earthquakes. So those are the projects or the sectors in which Flying Labs actually works. So in Namibia, a couple of projects that we've done some youth robotics training, but we also just didn't do the youth. We felt it was important because the teachers as well needed to know a little bit more about robotics before you just go straight to the students. So what happens in Namibia is that government schools don't have robotics as a subject. So we were trying to kind of subsidize that so that a few government schools could experience that and some of the kids could experience that. So that's why we had to start on the level of the teachers to teach them a bit about robotics and drones and then go down to the students. So we had two schools that we did this exercise with, and there's the little telos that we use with them. And the cool thing about the students is that they are so fast with these things. They pick it up. And I think it has to do with them playing the video games all the time. But then you mix it with a little bit of physics, a little bit of maths, and you place landing pads maybe in 3 different directions and tell them to use Pythagoras' theorem and program the telo to go land at point 2, and they just are brilliant with that. So we had a lot of fun with that project. And then we did one where we did a shack density analysis for one of the towns here in Namibia. So we have a lot of informal settlements. Actually, I might be using the word shacks, but it's actually informal settlements. That's what we call informal settlements here in Namibia. So they're made of little corrugated iron little housing. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's no sewer reticulation. And sometimes municipalities don't have funding to be able to study how many people need these services. And they grow so fast, like a mushroom effect, especially on the periphery of towns, because people will be moving from rural areas coming to urban areas looking for more job opportunities. So what happens is that they grow faster than the municipality can keep up. So with these studies, we allow the engineers, the town engineers, to plan for sewer, water, reticulation, and power as well. So this was a great study we did with the Ochivarongo municipality. And then we did, as well as one of the ministry, we did infrastructure assessment that had to do with the corrosion of steel towers. I was tying it to my master's degree because I'm mastering structural engineering, just to kind of estimate how uniform corrosion affects the life of structures, and can you predict when a structure is going to collapse? But that's something I'm still working on for my thesis. So what we do with our global community, we enable with South to South collaboration, want to be first movers of technology, and then we also do training, conferences and knowledge sharing days as well. And sometimes we assist with policy dialogues. So great. Enough talking from me. Now let's get to the interactive part, which is what I planned for today, was community engagement. And from Namibia Flying Labs, we've done so much work, and we've learned a couple of things that we didn't know, I guess, off of the just textbooks or what we've studied. And we found that even before we even did our remote pilot license, because sometimes, back in the day, we used to do some stuff. You find that consultants are appointed and they don't necessarily engage with the community. So there is no unity. Even after you have some form of training, you're appointed for a project, you come into the site, you don't consider the community. They must be subclass, I would say, in terms of understanding what's happening. You just do your work and then you get paid and then you leave. So there is no unity in terms of the appointed consultant and the community members. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, firstly, have you seen something similar where within your respective countries or where you come from? And secondly, I'd love you to think of a town or a community, a project that means something to you, then we can explore community engagement, just something to have in the back of your mind. So the first one, anybody ever seen a similar situation where there is a consultant and a community and there's no unity?
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much talking to me, because I was appointed as a consultant on a drone project that was happening in an island in Uganda, which was meant for medical deliveries for ARV patients. And what I realized was IDI was the one that was running the project. And as much as I was called in on the aviation bit, it didn't occur to me at any point that I need to engage the stakeholders who are the beneficiaries of the drone deliveries. And I think I left it up to my client, who had engagement with the community as well. And so I just came in as part of the stuff. So I don't know if as consultants, we are supposed to go above and beyond or just rely on our client's network.
Okay, so in your project, you relied on your client's network. Okay, then you are in this zone here where you're the appointed consultant and there's a disconnect with the community. And that's exactly what we're trying to solve today together. And with you have your project. I love it. You can keep that in the back of your mind. And the rest of you just think of somewhere, a passionate project where you could have experiences, or maybe one that you're planning and maybe you have something similar to this. And when you think of it, I want to know if you can do something for community engagement, for example, the medical cargo delivery project with your experience. What could you have done better?
I think probably I would have explained the project better, because my objective or my engagement with the client was basically to figure out how the aviation aspect works. So thinking in hindsight, I might have explained it to the community much more effectively rather than leaving it up to the medics who also relied on me for aviation information.
Okay. Okay, that's a great one. And I hope all of you thinking about your community have an idea of how you'd approach community engagement. And I'm going to put a next slide up, and then maybe we could change that idea or maybe even better that idea. Okay, so I hope everybody has a community and they thought of community engagement and how they would do it. Thumbs up, yes? Thumbs up, yes, yes. Okay, awesome. So one of the great things that make us fall off this pedestal that we have as pilots when we arrive at the community is that we don't appreciate the role and the power of the community. And there are a couple of questions that we have to ask ourselves to better our original plan that we would have had. First one being, what is your strategy to introduce the particular project or even the drone to the community? Remember, this is it could be a foreign object in the air. It's just something very new. A lot of people haven't seen it before, and they can see it in different lights, depending on their age, how much they know. It's a very human beings, they're very, very, very complex beings. So the first thing you think of how is a strategy to introduce the project to the community. Then you have to think of how the community will react to the drone or the project in itself. Is it a positive manner? Is it a negative manner? And then what will you need for this strategy to implement, your community engagement strategy? And then who will you need to implement this strategy? Because and not just, so we're looking at the resources, human resources, as well as your materials that we'll need to implement this community engagement strategy. So if we can just take another 2 minutes to think about our community again and improve our community engagement strategy. And then we can hear from you guys, looking at these questions, how your strategy has improved. And this time, I'm going to call names. This is the only way I'll know that everybody's participating. So just a few seconds, and then someone introduces their community and then the answers to this question. So first person I'm going to put on the spot will be, I see Eric at the top of my screen. Yeah, boy, yes.
Hello. I've kind of been out. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. I'm sort of an outlier here because I'm a patent and trademark attorney who flies drones for fun. However, my most recent experience with a community was in Mongolia, where I was there on a tour and flew my drone a lot. And I found a very differing response among the various places that I'd stay in terms of what they thought of drones. And I found the best thing to do would be to get it up in the air, get it safely away from people, and actually hand the controller to the various people, have them look through the view screen and see what they were seeing. And I found that really increased their buy-in to what the drone could do.
Okay, that is awesome. Yeah, so people, like you said, you brought up something very important. People react differently to the drone. Some people are confused. Some people are scared. And we have to consider this when we go out into the different communities. That one is very important. So if you had to redo it, what do you think you would have done in terms of people that you'd need, resource that you'd need to improve that experience that you had?
The first thing I would have done is try to meet with my tour guide ahead of time, have him fly the drone a few times so he knew what to tell people. The second thing is I would have learned more words in the local language. My Mongolian was limited to what I picked up on the plane on the flight over there. And so I could say the traditional Mongolian greeting is call off your dogs when you walk to somebody's house. That means you're not there for trouble. So you want them to get rid of their dogs. And I never had a problem with a Mongolian dog, but I probably would have learned the language better too.
Awesome. A very important one as well that you brought here. Understanding and being able to communicate with the locals, being able to speak to them in the local language, or at least having someone that could be able to translate for you. That one is important. So let me see the next person I'm going to pick out. I'm going to pick out two more. And the next one I'm going to pick up would be Miss Desi. I hope I got that right.
You sure did. And I can't wait to share. So I posted it into the chat. It was just the first one that kind of came to mind. Here, I'm in Southern California, and we, in our local community, we have a thing called Lunch and Learn, and it's hosted by the local Chamber of Commerce. And I'm guilty of this. I did this maybe 3 years ago, but I haven't done it since. They have Lunch and Learn once a month where you get a very short time frame to share. And it's a great way, just right here in my own little community, to share the positive side of what drones are doing, saving lives or doing the inspections. Like you said, that was amazing. I loved your presentation. Thank you. But, you know, they're unaware of it. And I think a lot of it is the perspective of calming some of the fears and showcasing the value, the drones for good and what they're doing. And so you've inspired me to want to reach back out to my chamber and say, all right, let's do a Lunch and Learn.
That is amazing. That is awesome work. And that is also, I love, you guys seem to know community engagement. You guys have a great idea of community engagement. Yes, it is showcasing the technology, showcasing the positive side, making people feel like they're part of the whole thing. That is very important for community engagement. Thank you very much. And then last, but of course not least, I'm sure I will ask more questions. I will choose Bill. Can you hear us, Bill? Yes, yay.
Yes, I can. Thank you. I apologize. I did join a little bit late, but I also am a bit of an outlier, perhaps. I am a consultant and hoping to get into consulting in these areas. So I'm interested in hearing this. And I'm actually trying to develop who and how I would understand, who I'd want to go and accept my consulting. So how do I advertise myself and understanding this? So I'd be probably wanting to go out to my first blush of communities to do the community engagement. And to the point that Eric said about learning their language, and that language could be simply what is their issue that they have, that either the drone or and I'm in the advanced air mobility, so I also consider, you know, some amount of the passenger capable electric aircraft, that type of stuff. What is it that it would solve for them? So I'd have to develop the understanding and their language of what is their problem first. And then I would have to probably keep on board with someone in that community, to Eric's point again, of how do you communicate using their thoughts and their problem set, as opposed to bringing in maybe my military background into it all the time, because that may turn a lot of people off. So I have to be careful of that. And so I would always want to keep very close tabs with a stakeholder who was also interested in trying to affect getting this project moving forward in the community. So you'd have to find out who your champion is that you would be working with during that. And so that's how I would approach it, trying to first find the problem, then find that person that even stated the problem and say, how do you want to solve it? Here's what I can bring to the table, etc. That person then makes the connections and is my translator, if you will, to the folks that would be needing to accept the solution.
Thank you very much. That's also a very important one, finding the problem. It's as if you've read my slides ahead of me, because exactly that's where I'm going to go with this next. And I think when I was preparing these slides, and I'm actually learning from you, the audience, when I was preparing the slides, I had only our local community from the African context in mind, but you guys are opening my minds to different communities out there. What we usually have here in Africa is that we have communities that are fearful of this type of drone technology. It is against traditions, or they fear that it could be witchcraft or something that is bad, just because they don't understand what it is. And that's why community engagement is very important in our context. But you have showed me different places where it can be applied as well. So I'm very appreciative of that. I'm loving this interactive session. So we have these questions on the board, and I hope the rest of you guys are also enjoying it and you have your community that you have in mind. We need to appreciate the roles and the power of the community. The questions that you asked and are very, very important. Questions that you ask the community can be the difference between whether a project succeeds or a project fails. And as Bill very well put, you need to find the problem first. Sometimes we have consultants or government that decide for the community that, okay, we have this problem, this is the solution we're going to give them. And sometimes the solution, the community members don't even want that solution. So it has to be the community members themselves who kind of advise as to the type of solution that they want. A good example I can think of the top of my head is sometimes here we have consultants that come and do the same project over and over again. Maybe they do the same study, the same mapping, and the same file is brought to the central government and says, okay, these are the problems, okay, these are the problems. But it becomes repetitive. Sometimes the community wants solutions to the problem. Maybe the community, we now understand that we have 50,000 informal settlements. That's fine and great. But we have consultants that keep on going to map the same informal settlements and count them over and over again. But what the community actually needs is for you to do a decent survey so that you can do soil and water reticulation. So you need to understand and ask the right questions to find the exact problem so you can find the right answer. So before, that's now as a consultant when you're trying to find a solution to the community. And then when you're going out into your community to do the work, there's a couple of stakeholders that you need to consult as well. You need to consult, of course, your local civil aviation authority. And I think we all have this one off the top of our heads, where you get the regulations right, you get the right to fly, you get all your paperwork done, that's great. And your insurance is in order as well. But you also need to talk to the local government within the community, because they are the ones that can carry your project and be able to communicate to community members and tell them about the project. You should also communicate to police. Sometimes when you go to rural areas, it gets a little bit rowdy and you might need the help of law enforcement. Now, community members are your best friends. They know the community like the back of their hand, and they will know the right roads, problems, anything that comes up in the community, and you need them to be able to accept your project. And local government plays a huge role in having community members accept your project. Even if you're just going somewhere, it could be a humanitarian project, it could be a small project like flying a drone, but what the local government does, the chief or the leader in the area does, is they speak to the community, and because they are the ones that spoke to the community, not you directly, they help the community accept you, in a sense that they become the middleman that makes you less of an alien to the community, more of a friend. And that's the importance of local government. So community engagement strategies.
Virginie?
Yes?
Yes, this is Bill Johnson again. I just had a point and wondered if you're going to touch on it. The local government obviously also has a lot of power in that they have funds that they can apply to projects, right? And they also should be, I think governments generally should be trying to help a community survive or grow or flourish. And therefore they can use that platform, their charter, as saying, hey, we're bringing in this project, this drone project to make things better for us. And we have funds, or we're finding funds to make it happen, so that, similar to having any other public project where you have to build let's say you build a clinic, you have to have the money to build the clinic. They help with that, correct? Wouldn't you say that's another reason for having government involvement?
Yes, that is correct. Usually what we have here, we have a local government, which is part of parliament and all of that, with our local authorities, but then we also have traditional leaders. So now we have the local government, which could be part of government, ministry, health, all of that. And then we have the chief of the community, chief of the village. So those are two levels of local government. So we have those that would have funded it, that would be the ministry or the local authority. They could have funded the project, but then you need to go down to find the traditional leader, that is the chief, who speaks to the people in the village. And if you don't get approval for your project from the chief, then there is a problem. And then we find that sometimes you need to come there with maybe a small gift, at least in the African context, sometimes you give a small goat, something nice, just so that the community can accept. If the chief accepts, he tells his people that, okay, we're on board with this project, it's something good for us. So there are two levels, I would say, in terms of governance here. Those that have the money, they're part of the circular system, and then the other traditional leaders. And I think that would be the difference between Africa and Europe and America, I think, Bill, I hope that clarifies it.
It does. Thank you very much.
Awesome stuff. So one of the great key strategies for community engagement is to have meetings and presentations. And like I just kind of alluded to, there are different sites. When we have projects that would be falling in area of municipal area, urban areas, we just have to speak to the central government, as Bill was saying, who also are part or partial of sometimes funding the project, and they are also having to play a role in informing the community. When we have in rural areas, we also have to go that little step further and be able to meet with traditional leaders as well, and maybe do a small presentation to them. In the rural area, it's more of you carrying your drone to kind of show them. And then that's what leads to the next point, where team members must be able to communicate in the local language. When you're in the rural area, if either you have a team that can communicate or you have a translator that's with you, that helps members of the community accept your project. You also need to have an emergency contact number, in as much as we have done the community engagement, and a key thing in the community engagement is to try and answer as many questions as you can when you're doing the sessions, and no question is ever a stupid question from the community. You just need to answer everybody and make everybody comfortable. After you're done with that, if you have the you should have an emergency contact number. Sometimes that is a member of your team, sometimes that is a member of the local authority, but someone should be there to contact in case anything goes wrong within your drone operation. It is a good practice to put up maybe flyers on community boards, posters, just detailing the nature of your work in case anybody has missed it. The idea of community engagement is that the community accepts your project, they understand it, and even when they go and have a beer in their local pubs, they can discuss it, and they know the project so good that they can now tell other members of the community that, hey, this is happening here, it's a great project that's happening, and yeah, we know everything about it. Are we getting okay with community engagement? Thumbs up? Okay. Any input so far? As you are thinking about your community, how you would have done community engagement, is this making sense in some of your communities? I'm going to choose Laura.
Oh. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Great. Yeah, I'm Laura Burns, and I'm with kind kind of different than a lot of the crew on here. I'm with Commercial UAV News and Commercial UAV Expo. So a lot of what I hear happening is kind of secondhand from other people. I can think of one instance that is used locally here, or I'm not there now, but our company is based in Maine, and there's a lot of usage of drones there that is rural and in agriculture. And we have had instances of, people going out there to fly, and people will shoot down the drones. There's a lot of guns in more rural areas. And then that becomes a whole thing. And then people are, much more resistant to drones ever coming in. So one thing, I feel like I'm going to read off the slides here. One thing that I know some people in the communities there have done is to kind of go door to door, have these posters or pamphlets out, sometimes like a month ahead of time, saying what they're going to do. But then they'll kind of do like open community so that people can come, they can see the drones, test flying, and then kind of like come and ask questions. And I think, a lot of times that does win over the trust of people, and they are more excited, although sometimes people will come to like protest that. So I think, people have to be prepared that some people are going to be really excited and on board once they see it in action. But then there might also be people that you're inviting, you're kind of opening the door for people to like physically come and be upset about it. So I think just preparing for that. And so I know that that's, kind of a different situation than some of these, but same principles, I think.
Yep, that is very true. When you're doing community engagement, you try and get as many people to buy into the project as possible. But even when you're doing the project, maybe people don't know, and they could still come and, kind of attack the pilot or the drone itself. And that is why you also need, like I mentioned earlier, you need to get sometimes law enforcement involved. We also have a lot of projects we've done in rural areas. And what happens here is it's very similar to what you're describing. So the drone goes into the air, and there are a lot of little children, they follow the drone, they're screaming, and it's fine. But then sometimes they're throwing stones, try and bring down the drone. It flies over someone's house. They have little weapons, makeshift weapons, like, you also referred to guns. So these things happen in real life, and we need to see how to counter that as best as we can. So that is very true. Thank you very much. Awesome stuff. And then I'd love to hear one more voice. Let me try Nita.
Well, I was just typing in the chat, so I'll just talk as opposed to type. So I am in Memphis, Tennessee, and really a lot of what you're talking about is not that different from some of our neighborhoods in terms of in Memphis, we have over 20 community development corps, which are nonprofit community development agencies, and they each have a leader. And so recently I was just typing in the chat, I'm really excited. So in an underserved area, one of the larger nonprofits pointed me to a location. I connected with the guy that owns that property, who they own it through a CDC. And and he was very excited about we offered to do training and get families together where the parents have maybe older kids, say 18, 19, and 20, and maybe they own a small business. So the parents can hopefully answer questions, ask questions, buy into the process. The kids can learn how to fly safely and get their license. And then we piggyback off of that into what drone solutions work best for those mom and pops in these low-income areas. And so the leader is just really excited. He was going to go talk with other leaders in that community to see if they would be open to this. So he's kind of doing the filtering of, okay, this is what we're talking about doing in our community. Are you in? Are you willing to at least? So we're going to have, so one of the next steps is to have an info session and invite those families who live in that underserved area, who have maybe older, maybe adult children, or kids just coming out of high school and they don't know what they want to do, and they, trying to figure out what they're going to do and what's going to make them happy. And so that's an angle that I am playing out with this one community, but then that approach hopefully will work. The end solution might be different for their community, as opposed to, say, another underserved community who has a lot of musicians and, the arts. And so you're talking about maybe, film and photography there in the community that I'm working with now, or that I just described. I'm not sure yet what little businesses are there and what they want. So we're still filtering that. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Thank you so much. That is indeed very awesome what you just said. And it is important with the second community that you're engaging. And it's important, it's a good thing that you're doing to understand what they want, what their needs are, and understand who you're presenting the drone to, your demographics. Who are they? How do they typically anticipate such drones and this type of activities within their space? So that is very important. That is awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Great. I see there's a lot of community engagement and a lot of knowledge sharing that's going on here. Some companies also approach community engagement a little bit differently. For example, here in Namibia, some companies would hire local members of the community to be part of the project. So that obviously has some positive part in terms of achieving the unity. There's skills and knowledge transfer. Members of the community that have been hired have a sense of ownership and pride in the project. And then there's also youth empowerment and some level of employment creation. So at least for that approach, we can see some of the positive impacts of that. But what do you think would be some of the negative impacts of hiring some members of the community if you were an appointed consultant? Just off the top of your head. Can I choose again? Let me choose again. What do you think the negative impacts of this approach would have been? And I'm going to choose, if you are still here with us, Cynthia. Okay, Cynthia is rather quiet. So
Hi,
I
I'm
will
sorry, I'm here.
choose.
Hello.
Awesome. Welcome, Cynthia.
Hi. Negative. I honestly can't think of, I'm very pro, like, educate the community about drones. And can't really think of anything off the top of my head as negative of bringing the community in. So I'm sorry.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, it is often a very positive approach. It just has a few backlashes here and there. So let's see what could possibly go wrong. So if you hire some of the community members, in as much as they feel that they have a sense of ownership and they are part of the project and everything, other members of the community sometimes still feel excluded. Because, as a consultant, as you're coming to this community, you can't hire everybody. You could hire a few local experts that would, of course, benefit your project and help in the overall goal, and of course can speak the local language and everything. But there will be a few members that might feel left out for one another reason. They might feel, I was not hired, I'm not part of this project, and things like that. So there might be a little bit of backlash in terms of not pleasing all the other community members. But this is something that can easily be resolved. Sometimes we practice involving communities on different levels. Even if they were not hired, we can still bring everybody together by arranging maybe youth and STEM activities that is available for everybody. other activities such as sports events and things like that. And then you can also make use of other resources. I know we spoke of flyers and things like that, but when you have local government involved and then you're doing this type of activities, they can easily give you the community hall, for example, for you to do this kind of activities. And then on a holistic scale, everybody kind of feels like they are part of this type of project so that we have unity. So yeah, that is community engagement from my side. It's a short presentation. In We Robotics also has a course on community engagement if anyone would be interested in taking that course on as well. But that's what we have learned as Flying Labs through the works that we have done, and we thought it would be very cool to share. I just wanted to end with one more picture I added to the back of my presentation after I closed it, is that we have this cool image from Tanzania Flying Labs, and they're doing some great job on community engagement and having the youth come and have a look at their SenseFly drone. And the pie chart on the side kind of shows that the most important part is the community and the stakeholder engagement. Much more important than the actual drone itself. Second to that is the data that is collected. Of course, it does great work with the data, but the community needs to be involved. They need to see the value of the project, and they need to see how it's going to positively impact them. They need to not be afraid of your project, and they need to accept you, and you become one of them. So that's the key to a successful project. So with that, I would like to say thank you. And Louise, I am done with my presentation, but I'm free for questions and comments, and everybody else who didn't get to talk, you're more than welcome to give your feedback on the presentation and community engagement as a whole.
Wow, thank you so much, Virginie. That was an incredibly informative presentation, and you absolutely nailed it, that you cannot overdo community engagement. You've absolutely got to get everybody involved if you want a successful project on so many levels. And yeah, wow, thank you so much. And I love the way you got us all thinking. My head hurts. But no, that was awesome. Thank you so very much. Let me have a look through the chats. Does anybody have any questions, extra questions to ask Virginie? Speak out. Eric.
I have a question, but it's more related to drone tourism in Namibia rather than the core of her presentation. So I'd like to wait until everybody else has had a chance to ask a more relevant question.
Okay. It's on your next visiting list, is it?
It is.
Okay. Excellent. Anybody else got any questions for Virginie? Any or experiences for themselves where they've had some unfortunate encounters, perhaps?
Could I ask,
Sure.
I'm just interested, again, I stepped in a little bit late, so I apologize if this is something that is obvious to everybody, but Virginie, how do you find communities, do communities ask you to come in because they have a problem? Or do you go and find ways to select a particular community where you think that they could use some help, or that you see a possibility that drones could be a solution? Which comes first? It seems like a chicken and the egg to me.
Yes, it is a little bit of the chicken and the egg. So when we first started our works as Flying Labs, we felt that, and this was actually a wrong thing that we did, and we feel like, oh, I know the community, I should know what the problem is, I'm gonna just look for funding and just do the work. But that was a very wrong approach, because you never really know what the actual problem is until you hear it from the community. So we've evolved to a point where we can have an idea, and we go to confirm, or at least to hear from the local government. Is this really the case? Is this really the problem? Just to understand it, the local authority. And then in terms of doing the project, they need to give us a support letter. So we usually go, we do a general presentation about drone technology. And first of all, we don't already come with our solution. That's also a very dangerous thing, to assume we know the answer and solution. So we do a general presentation of the work and what drones can do. And then they tell us, oh, this is cool. I would like to do this. Oh, our kids did this, that type of stuff. And we have an understanding of the type of project that will be great for them. And then we compare with what we have in-house, donors and things like that, and we get a support letter from them. And maybe we can also bring up other projects, kind of like give them more information, because of course we are on the technical side, we are supposed to specialize in that, and say, okay, you needed this, maybe we can bring a drone to do this. And then they give us a support letter. We then look for the funding. Then we have to do community engagement with them, because now we've done it on a government level, because they are in charge of, the local authorities should know the needs of their communities. So they were elected by the community to represent them. So we approach the local authority first. We get the support letter. We do the whole process I talked about. If we get the funding for the project, we come back to the local authority. Now the local authority needs to work with us to have the rest of the community members accept this project. So that's where we start doing this. Yeah. You come together, you show what the drone is, to other members of the community, you do the flyers, you do as much community engagement as possible, and the local authority is very much involved. And now at this stage, they should also take the stand and start talking to their community and say, hey, we're going to be doing this amazing project. These are the benefits that you're going to get from it. And we'd like you to help the people. These are the people. This is the team. They're from where? They'll be wearing blue t-shirts and all of that. Feel free to ask them if you need anything, or contact who if you need anything, and then we do the project. And then after we're done with the project, the good thing about it is that the good practice is rather to go back and present to the community again the results and what you can do with the information. It's very good when they feel like they're involved and they understand the project. At local government level, that's where you can also arrange other small side activities like sports events, those type of things. So that's what we've found so far kind of works for us within the Namibian space.
Can I ask a quick follow on? Do you take any of those community members with you to the next project to explain, hey, this is how it worked in ours? It was, these people are honest and they're good and they are helpful.
So from individual members of the community, no, but in terms of the local government, their presentation, their stuff, their buy-in helps to buy into the next local government. So communities from us, we don't all speak the same language. We've got different tribes, different languages and everything like that. So taking a member from one community to the other community sometimes can be a bad thing, because it's like, they are also still outsiders, even though we're still in the Namibian space. Certainly. So that's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that I thought maybe that might be the case. Thanks.
Thank you. I think Gonse has a question for you.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Uwimana. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. Thank you for the presentation. So we are basically students, graduates from South Africa trying to essentially create a solution, a drone solution. And we have like a few concerns, or say like a few key things that we'd like to find out. Firstly, with the community, right? I wanted to know, how do you think you can create something sustainable out of these projects? Is there something where you can actually, create something where there becomes an ecosystem, or a longer term economic benefit for the communities?
Okay, great. Yeah, sustainability is very important for projects, and the same question is asked for most donors when they're giving you funding for a project. Our aim when we bring in the drones technology, for example, for local authorities, is to show them what you can achieve with drone technology. They understand the traditional methods very well, and as was brought up very earlier with Bill, is that these local governments have the capacity to fund some of these projects. They just don't know what you can do with drones and the information you can get from it. So it's the projects we usually do, we do them for some of them for local authorities, like the one for the shack density analysis. We give them the results and they understand, okay, wow, this is what you can do with drone technology. And then the next financial year, they start making budget allocation from some of these exercises. And that's the side from government. So other projects in terms of sustainability, now I might move not more to maybe youth training. Some of the youth training projects that we have done, they are sustainable in a sense of you do charge the kids in as much as you're trying to kind of cut the fee. You have to charge us a little bit just so that the project keeps going and you be able to repair and get new equipment. The flying labs as a whole has to be sustainable. So some of these projects, they have to be paid for to a certain extent for us also to continue doing the work. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think for now, like you have answered my question, because I did wonder, like, especially in terms of like some of the projects you guys have mentioned thus far, especially in your presentation as well, that like how then once the community gets exposed to this, it's like how do they then, you know, try and create some sort of opportunity, or, you know, do something in the space where they won't feel as though you came with this, you know, great excitement of we're doing this, we're doing that, and then, you know, once the project is done, that's that. So yeah, but yeah, I think you've clarified some of that. My next question is, now that we are trying to, you know, try and make things more locally in terms of actually trying to get stuff going in Africa, what would you say drone companies aren't offering right now that African solution could offer you guys? Or is it that, you know, everything has been covered and it's just a matter of supporting African businesses?
Okay, I think the second one was more now of an entrepreneurship question. Have
Yeah, sorry
all
about
the
that.
drone companies covered? Yeah, that was more of your minimum viable product.
Yes.
But I can just try off the top of my head. Have we answered all of the questions and all the needs? Sure, that is a tough one. Just because there are just so many drone companies and so many people doing some brilliant and amazing things out there. I think the problem though is that we don't have the capacity to repair things locally. We find that the problem is sometimes that the parts breaks and then we have to send the drone back thousands of miles so that it can get repaired and come back. So we need that local capacity building that we need. In terms of going back to sustainability, you know, we're trying to get government to kind of redirect the taxpayers' money and invest in new technology, invest in new solutions. And as that happens with time, it means that we're changing the market. It means we're building more businesses around electronics, the need for electronic components, the need for repair, and the need for local manufacturing. That's what we actually want to do in terms of building that type of capacity. And then, of course, it'll also affect education. We're trying to gear education to kind of accept this type of new technology as well. And we work with universities to do that. So for me, the gap would be that technology is created outside, but we cannot repair, we can't refurbish, we can't do anything here. We also, it's from both sides in terms of the cost to get the 3D printers and all of that. It's a very expensive investment for a business to do here in Namibia or in African countries. We do need support in that. And in fact, actually, if we did have more support from that side in terms of equipment, we probably would have some more creative solutions as well. But we do need that type of those type of businesses to be built around. Are there any gaps? This reminds me of, because I did a project when I did study at the Africa Drone and Data Academy, is that I was trying to tackle the issue of flooding in the northern area. And what we ended up doing is that designing a holistic drone, because we knew we had drones for doing surveying, capturing contour lines, the whole kits for that. We knew you have drones for that you can mount the speakers on. And then we knew that you could also have some drones with thermal sensors on to be able to identify people that might be caught up in floods at night. But we didn't have one drone that could do everything. So we tried to design a drone that could be used in disaster risk assessment, management, and response. So then we had a VTOL, we designed a VTOL drone, and we kind of mounted on as many sensors as possible, a thermal sensor, mapping sensors. We tried to mount on as many payloads, including try to see if we could put a megaphone in so it could be able to respond in all three parts of the disaster. So that is the one gap perhaps I personally with my team have found in terms of drone technology that can be used in the African context.
All right, thank you so much for your response.
Thanks, Virginie. I'm afraid we're running out of time. I'm really sorry about this. There was I don't know if we can hang on, but if anybody else needs to drop off, just a quick question from Jagongo was, how long, in your estimate, does it take from inception of an idea to fruition in terms of being accepted by the community and stakeholders? What's the timeline normally involved, do you think, or you've encountered?
If I get that correct, the timeline for communities to accept the project?
How long it takes to engage with the community? Have I got your question right there, Jagongo?
Yes. Between when you start engaging them until when you start actually doing the project.
Okay, great. That varies from local authority to local authority. Usually it's the best way is to just ask for a presentation directly with the local authority. That's the best bet. Then they have their usual like council meetings. They have a schedule, whether it's once a month, once every 2 weeks, and then you do the presentation there, and from there you can follow up with an asking them for a formal letter. But that part should be the part that's the more complicated, that the way you can't really control the time. But after that, once that you have your support letter and you have everything ready, it's a matter of you just scheduling. Now you need to actually own up and now, go and schedule with the community, ask the local government to make the announcement, to set the dates and all that, and get the ball rolling. I think depending on where you are, I don't think it should take you more than a month really, but you should give the community enough time to kind of see the notice. Everybody has seen the notice, it's been announced. Sometimes you can announce it in the newspaper, maybe you give it maybe 2 weeks so that everybody knows the date of the community engagement, the venue and all of that, and then you can then start your project. But we've seen that it varies for us from community to community. And then, of course, for you to get your refreshments and everything, because that part is also important. By the way, people don't like to come and there is no refreshments.
Yeah, I've also noticed the same thing. I think it really depends on community to community, depending on their needs and their individual requirements. But yeah, so far it's taken me about 3 months to get my academy running in my hometown of Kisumu, but I think that is because the whole drone training thing was very new. Drones alone was very new, so that took like a bunch of time to explain drones, and drone training took like another bunch of time to explain, and then the approval process also took another bunch of time. So I think that's why I needed probably to engage a lot in the community to tell them what I really want to do for them. Although I was hoping it would take me like a week or a month at most.
Yeah, no, it varies, but the good thing is that the more communities accept it, the more you can kind of like build up on that and say it has been done here in this other region, and then they accept it more. But we know we're not community engagement experts. We just learn from, our activities, and that's what we're sharing today. And you all have taught me a lot of new skills as well, new knowledge. So I thank you very much, everybody. And we will continue to, make the community engagement space more friendly for the community.
Well, thank you, Virginie. Yeah, really very important points. Absolutely. I don't know, Eric, do you want to quickly ask your question?
Sure, yeah. Basically, Namibia, in addition to being from what I understand, the second least populated country on Earth, has a surf break called Skeleton Bay that's the longest, hollowest left around that I'd love to surf before I get too old. And so I'm interested in going to Namibia on a drone flying vacation, taking my family. And I've already read up that you need a permit. You can't fly in the national parks, understandably. But if anybody from Namibia would have any hints on where to go, what time of year, where to fly into, anything like that, I'd love to hear about that through email would be fine.
Okay, great. I think we can still help you as Flying Labs. Yeah, you do need the permit, and then also the whole import issues, and then with Aviation Authority as well. There are also companies where you can rent drones if you don't have, then you don't have to bring yours. So we can also explore that with you.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. I put my email in the chat, and I would appreciate any advice you could give me. That'd be great.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And
Laura?
oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Virginie, for this discussion. Is really interesting. I was in Senegal recently and had the opportunity to visit the Flying Labs office in Senegal, and so that was kind of my first introduction to Flying Labs. And I think it's just so interesting and such a great model. And working for commercial UAV news, we cover a lot of different things, but I just, I feel like if there's anything that our news site can do to kind of help get the word out, just connect with me. And yeah, thank you again.
Great, thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much, and thank you for supporting the Flying Labs.
Bye. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Well, yes, I think we'll draw this to an end, sadly, but we'll definitely invite you back again, Virginie, and hear some more of your experiences and the results of other community engagements and how it's all coming along in terms of empowering these communities with this technology. But thank you so very much for a highly informative presentation. Thanks everybody who joined us this evening, this afternoon, this morning, including from Indonesia. Thank you very much. And yeah, we will be back on the first Thursday of February, which I believe is the 2nd of February at 5:30 South African Standard Time. So join us then, and look on the Women and Drones Africa LinkedIn page, where I'll put the next event up with our next speaker. And again, thank you, Virginie. Really, really informative and impressive presentation. Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody. Take care.